Hi, it's Pat with Big Boss Flooring. Today we're going to talk about a couple of different transitions from different floorings. We're showing how to transition from carpet to a hard surface. So what we always do is you always put down a piece of tack strip. You'll want to keep it about a finger's distance away, with the pad being about a 1/4 inch away from the tack strip. And then what you do is you take the carpet, it would be bumped up, and then carefully trimmed it, and then you can tuck it into there, and that's one way of transitioning to the carpet, by tucking it in. Another way of doing it is there is a product called Z-Bar that you can also pick up. Again, what you do is it sticks about a 1/2 inch away from the edge, and then what you're doing is, again, the pad is close, but then you take this and you tuck it underneath the Z-Bar. And with the Z-Bar, what it's designed is when you hit it with a hammer, it pins the carpet down so it won't come out or undo from there, and it gives you a nice roll. So that's another transition that you can use. Another one that we use most commonly with hard surfaces is a product called E molding. And so what you would do is put this in first, and then you put a finger's distance away with your tack strip, put your pad up against close to the tack strip, and then you slide your carpet up into here, and then you would tuck this into there, so it gives you a nice finish to the edge. Now, of course, transition, you'll want to match it, and there's lots of different ones out there, and all the profiles can vary from brand to brand, but that's another way of doing it. Another way that people do it sometimes, but it's not one that I would necessarily recommend, is that you'll see one that is a lot of times is a T-mold. Now, of course, it'll have different widths on the T-molds, and some of them will vary on the depth on that. But where a lot of times people will put this down and then put it over the carpet like this. It works, but the downfall of it is sometimes it's because the carpet's underneath of here. When you step on it, it can crack the T-mold. So that's the downfall. But it's something that can be used if you need to cover a wider width between the distances between the hard surfaces and the carpet. And now we're going to transition from a laminate or the waterproof flooring, or even a hard surface that you can do if it's a different height. As you can see, the vinyl sitting a little bit lower. What you're going to use is a product called Reducer, and what that does is, of course, reduce it down to the lower surface. So example here would be is that you would install that like this over top of the vinyl, and then that would give you that nice transition down. Now also, if the surface, let's say we had a higher surface, you could take this product. So if this was higher, you could take the product and turn it around going the other direction, with the reducer being on this side on the overlap, reducing down to the material, giving you a really nice match. So another one that you would use, let me take this real fast. If we had the same height surface, you use a product called T-molding. Now, of course, the T-molding will vary. Sometimes it'll be longer, and sometimes there won't be any end piece on here. It's more of almost what we call a flat piece. But again, you would get the color that match, and then usually you're going to need to leave a little bit of a gap, so then that way the track can go in there, or you can glue it in there. Again, this going into here like this gives you a nice transition between the two surfaces. And also, if the surface winds up by being a little bit higher than the other, you can still use a T-mold. It will take it and you can make it at a slight angle, and it will still transition to your other surface, so it works really well. Some of these come with the track, where you can put a track down, and then you take the piece, again being a T-mold, and you can insert it in there. Now, most of the time we don't recommend the track, and the reason why we don't recommend the tracks all the time is a lot of times if the floor does any bouncing or any movement, it sometimes will come out of the track and keep coming out. And so we end up having to glue it anyway. And a lot of times when you do put it in a track and you take it out of the track, usually you'll end up destroying the piece underneath, and you'll have to glue it anyway. So that's a couple different transitions that you can do from vinyl, or even if it's concrete surface, to your brand new flooring. Alright guys, now another one that we have to contend with sometimes is so that you got a wall, and then you have your wall base, and sometimes on the wall base it's up a little bit high, and if you moved it down you get that paint line or the caulking line. And so what you would use is a piece of 1/4 round, and the 1/4 round would go up against the wall base, and it would hide the gap between the wall base and the floor. Now, this is done a lot on the East Coast, but it's also done a lot of times here on the West Coast when you don't have the option of moving the trim, or it's an old base and you don't want to take it off. And so that has that transition there. Also, where you would use the 1/4 round a lot of times is on the back door. with having that half moon, it will give it to where you can seal this off, and it makes it easier to clean, especially along the back door. But you can put the quarter round in there, and that would help it too. And then should your gap be too wide, and your base doesn't cover it, again, the quarter round comes into play to where you can slide it over that gap and hide it. So the quarter round is also very useful. Again, a lot of times we have many of the colors will match product you're laying. Just to give you some idea of how many transitions are out there to help fix problems. Now, there's not always a solution for everything, but as you can see on this, there's lots of different transitions that we have in different moldings, different rubbers, and they come in several different colors too. There's all sorts of solutions, even for stairs. There's some solutions that we can use besides just the laminate trims or the hard surface trims to match. But there's a lot of solutions out there. Just come by and we'll be glad to help you out.